Hello, 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 everyone. All right, Brad, let's get our faces on video. Let's do this.
I have no
Turn
idea.
it on my video. I'm gonna turn on your video. Invite to video mode. Brad Caldwell. I feel like, hey, what's up, Brad? Did you get a cup of coffee? I actually had the wait bot going because I just
I
made one
did.
in like the loudest coffee maker of all time. I actually have a Molly Dare aggressive liker mug, so I'm not saying for sure my mug's going to be better than yours, but for sure my
It,
mug's
it
going to be
is.
better
Mine
than
used to say
yours.
stuff on it.
So welcome everyone to Business with Champions. I'm super excited that you are here today. Hey, Stephanie. Stephanie's a friend of the show. You all are friends of the show. So here's what we do here. What we do here is we workshop your business, marketing, branding, sales, all of those kinds of questions. It brings me back to where we started on Clubhouse, Brad. And we started in Marketing Monday. That's why I named the room Marketing Mondays. So while I put this in a tripod, could you tell
You went away for a second there. What would you want me to tell everybody about?
who you are, what you do, what we can talk about today?
No problem. My name is Brad Caldwell, and I'm the CEO and founder of Spark Business Strategies. We're a branding and marketing agency in Wilmington, North Carolina. The river is about 5 minutes that way, and the Atlantic Ocean's about 5 minutes that way. You're at my
Are
house.
you flexing? Tell the truth. Did you flex when you said the beach is that way?
I did a little. I didn't put it there though, but I did the flex.
I just noticed there was a momentary gunshot. I want to make sure
Yeah,
nobody missed
yeah.
it.
Well, if you notice, I try to keep my arm out of frame so people would not see the lack of caliber. You know what I mean? Like, don't point like that. Keep it away because I know you've had Elijah on here, and I ain't trying to flex like that. So I'm gonna just keep my arm away. But yeah, we do branding and marketing for businesses all over the country, and we're in a couple other countries. We've built brands, we have rebranded businesses, and we do a lot of clarification and helping businesses figure out who their ideal clients are and how to message to them correctly, or whether or not the sauce that they have matches the message they want to send. So that's what we do. And I'm married and got three great kids. Elliot is homesick.
Amazing, amazing. So everyone is sick right now. So it's funny because I'm in my house and for some reason it's saying I have poor network quality. So we're just going to rock with it. Let me know if for some reason you can't hear me. So again, what we do on this show, raise your hand. We will answer any questions that you have as best we can. We love chatting all things marketing, sales, branding. In the meantime, I will just add Brad questions to come up. And no, I will not put you on video. That's the number one asked question. People will be like, I don't want to raise my hand because I don't want to be on video. You can stay on audio. But we want to answer your questions about what's going on with your business. So I'm going to start here, Brad Caldwell.
Yeah.
What is more important for a business, that they have good branding or that they have good marketing?
Well, then branding would be branding is the answer only because you can always have more marketing, but in marketing, I think what we're learning now, especially as things get as it gets harder to find people and harder to find your audiences and harder to get your message out with real clarification. The reason that's a pain point for businesses is one, the modalities by which we get out advertising and messaging and marketing and all that stuff are more expensive now than they've ever been. But the real kind of baseline problem is that we can't just say, hey, I'm in roofing and it lands a client. Hey, I'm a coach. It lands a client. Now what you have to do is be able to distinguish yourself without denigrating the audience or denigrating the competition. The seasons of fun. Remember when Pepsi and Coke fought each other? Those were two brands that everybody knew, and they made a game out of fighting with one another. And it took over advertising, and it was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. They made great commercials. Sometimes I think we all think our baby is the next Coca-Cola when it's really like Fresca, and we market it.
First of all, I love me some Fresca.
I knew you would. It's just proper bougie. That stuff tastes like dishwater. I'm sorry. You love Fresca. We should pray. We should start what we're doing right now.
I want to go get some Fresca. I haven't drank, first of all, you know this about me, I haven't drank a soda in probably 10 years, but you're making me want some Fresca. So I will tell the room, one of the reasons why I love Brad, that question I just asked him, we call it a grenade. We used to save those for the end, but it said I started with one. That's why you saw the look on his face, like, oh, so we're going there to start. But here's one of the things that I love, Brad. I love that you brought up the example of roofing. And we'll start here. And I think it's really important, and I think it's really powerful because they've also heard you talk about your client who's in HVAC and the fact that like you're not actually, no one wants to buy a roof, right? No one actually wants to buy a roof, I guess, unless their roof is leaking, right? But they're trying to buy, what's going on in their home, right? Same thing with HVAC. Like no one's necessarily trying to buy a new air conditioner unit. They want to be cool on a hot summer day. They don't want the ice cream to melt, or they want to be warm when it's snowing outside unseasonably. So can you talk our audience through that a little bit of like, what is that actual process of reconceptualizing when you're saying like, you're not just a roof or a coach, but like really, what you need to hone in on with your audience?
Yeah. So there's seasonality and then there is, disaster. And what happens for a lot of us is we get really good at seasonality. You will hear, especially in trade jobs, oh, January is a slow month. January must be slow for every trade on earth. I have a roofing client.
Job search coaches, except job search coaches. If you write resumes, you have work in January.
See, that's awesome. I need to find those people because they won't complain in January. But if you're a roofing company, people don't call. If you're a heating and cooling company, people don't call. If you paint, if you do floors, if you install windows and doors, siding, all that stuff, every client I've got will say January from about mid-December to about early February, that's our slow season. But what they don't think about, everyone has a plan for being an umbrella when it rains. Nobody's got a plan for being a shelter in a hurricane. And the reason is because we rarely plan for the hurricane. We rarely plan. We need a long-term forecast. However, when we were pushing and pushing and pushing our clients, say the end of 2019, to double down on messaging, because I honestly thought it would be 2020 would be an economic boom of a year. And people really needed.
I love hearing people say, I honestly thought at the beginning of 2020.
Yes, that's that should be like the tagline.
Am I delayed also, by the way? Or am I just stunning you with everything I say, or am I delayed? Because everything I say, there's like a momentary beat and I'm like, am I that off? I'm really hoping it's the tech.
I'm just very dramatic with my pauses. No, I don't know.
No, every time that it passes to you, there's like a full 3 seconds delay, and I'm like, did I just say something shocking?
I don't think there. I don't know. Maybe there is. I can't see it, but I don't use Fireside very much. I just watch your show. I don't really do anything else. But I
Well, thank
think,
you for joining Business with Champions. Oh, Steph's
yeah,
coming up. Steph knows everything about Fireside. Steph, what am I doing wrong? Am I shocking this morning?
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Brad. It's great to see both of your faces here
Good
today. No,
morning.
so Sarah, on our end in the audience, we're not hearing that delay you're hearing, but you are pausing every once in a while, freezing, and we're not hearing you.
Okay.
So I just think you probably just have a bad or just a weak connection. Yeah, but we can hear you guys great.
Okay.
Sorry for the
All right. I'll
frustration.
see if I can move. But no, literally, Brad, I was like, am I getting marketing wrong? Because every time I speak, you look shocked for like 60 seconds before you
yeah,
like answer and hone in on the question.
no,
So I was like, is that bad?
I like that Stephanie just kind of came in and was like, I'm going to be brilliant for a second and then I'm going to leave. All right, cool. I should do that more often.
First of all, that's her brand. That is Steph Jansen's brand. She pops in, she takes care of business, and then she's got work to do. We
I
just
got
love
to
her for that. She's always there when you need her. She's a boss.
I have to stay around long enough for people to know I'm smart. Like keep saying it, Brad. You're going to be smart in a minute. But at the end of 2019, with all of our, especially our trades, based on the way economics was going, everybody just saw Sarah leave, right? Based on the way economics is going, we told everyone to lean in to opportunity because opportunity was really gonna blow up. It was gonna be good. And then what ended up happening was obviously the opposite of that. We had the beginnings of a pandemic. Everything shut down. But what we didn't know, what we couldn't have planned for, the disaster that we didn't see coming, was that everyone was going to quarantine. Everyone was going to stay home. And what do you do when you sit in your house for all your waking hours? You see the chip on the
Drink
wall
coffee.
missing. You see where there's fog in that one window, so a seal has been torn. You notice a leak you've never noticed before in the plumbing or in the roof line. You don't like the way your driveway looks, crazy stuff. So in the midst of we built a back patio, put up, what's that called in the kitchen that I think is ridiculous? A backsplash. We've done all kinds of home updates. And when I'd call my clients thinking, they're going to be at my house in no time. They're my clients. They're like, we're 2 months out, bro, because we were the loudest in the market saying who we are and what we did when a disaster hit and everybody was staring at the inside of their homes. So all of my clients in 2020 essentially doubled, if not tripled, their revenue. And because people were getting sick and we had the inklings of what is now the Great Resignation, you started to see them actually almost make more money. Now they were stressed to the hilt because they had less people working. But if you have less people working, you're paying less people. And so a lot of my friends who have been, they were done doing the job. They're not on the roof. They're not crawling in the ductwork. Well, they got back to that job in 2020 and in 2021 and were reminded why they'd left it in the first place. This is a young person's game. They don't want to do that anymore. But they found themselves economically booming simply because they were positioned to be seen first. And when you're seen first, that's good marketing. When you're seen and it comes across as authentic and they can engage it, that's good branding. And so because their brand was tight and their marketing was present, so you need great branding and to be present in marketing. And to be present in marketing is just a cost case.
I love that you brought that back to the original question. So you were saying to be seen first is great marketing. To be seen first and authentically finish the sentence is great branding.
Yeah, to be seen first and be authentic and properly engaging with what they need. Like how many ads have you scrolled past? Or don't you wish that commercial would come on when you're watching cable? I don't know if you remember cable, but a lot of people still have it. And you can't click past the ad.
I do.
And you have to watch it. There are ads that come on TV that compel you to get popcorn, and there are ads on TV that compel you to sit. You think those ads are great because they're great, but they're not. They're great because they connect with you. That's what has you in your seat. So being able to connect with the right audience. So if I was selling some sort of product entirely devoted to men, like to, I don't know, one of those skull shaver things.
Men's deodorant. Sell some men's deodorant.
Okay, so if I was selling men's deodorant, never mind trying to shave my bald head. If I was selling men's deodorant,
This is what we do when y'all don't come to stage. I'm just gonna keep lobbing questions at Brad and ridiculous examples until y'all get on up here and ask about your businesses.
here's a great one. Remember, we're close enough in age. Remember Secret, the women's deodorant.
Yes.
They would say
Yes.
strong enough for a man, but pH balanced for
But made for a woman.
So if you've heard that
Yep.
commercial enough times and you see that blue thing pop up on the screen, I'm either going to tune out or change the channel, which is actually exactly what they want, because I don't buy deodorant for my wife and I don't have any daughters. So they want her to connect and stay. They want her to own that commercial is talking to her and is good for her. What they don't want is a bunch of Brads being like, golly, those deodorant ads are hysterical, because they're not going to monetize off of that. So it's not.
You know what, actually, Brad, is so interesting that you landed on? I'm actually going to look up Secret Deodorant right now to see what their current slogan is, because here's the other thing that I think is super interesting is that, as you said, in like the 80s, right, to have something like strong enough for a man, made for a woman, women would be like, oh yeah, like I'm as strong as men. But like nowadays, if someone came out with that in the like sitting around the table workshopping, you would be like, are you kidding me? Like, what do you mean strong enough for a man? But pH, of course, like we want to, you know what I mean? It's offensive now, actually. Like before, it was like you can work out as hard as a man, and now we can swear because we're not on Clubhouse. Now it's like no shit. So I'm like going through their website and I'm looking at like the first thing I see is all strength, no sweat. And it's a woman flipping a tire. And the next one I see is clinical strength protection. The next thing I see is live fresh now, keep calm, no sweat. And so one of the really interesting points that you make there that I actually like love about that, I'm just taking this in a completely different direction than whatever last question I asked you about deodorant, was that, I'm almost curious, like, it's super interesting too when you think of a brand that's been around for so long, when you think about those pivot points, because people throw rebranding around like it's like confetti. Oh, like let's rebrand.
Like it's the. I think sometimes we treat rebranding like it's a fuel additive, and it's supposed to make you more efficient.
And
it's not.
Oh, sorry.
That's not what rebranding does. Rebranding.
No, but like this is such a key. Go for it. I'm sorry, the delay is killing me. I apologize. It's like keep thinking you're done.
I don't. It's so rebranding.
Am I like, people are gonna think I'm the worst host ever because I keep talking over you. Let me see if I move my phone, which is gonna be really distracting. Really if my service gets any better.
No, right. I think rebranding is really dropping a new engine in. And when you change the engine out of the vehicle, you take everything apart. Engines don't just snap in and snap out. So when you rebrand, you're changing something entirely. Like for me to remember the slogan of Secret Deodorant from 30 years ago, maybe, to see it now and immediately notice, I mean, the very first thing you see is strength. Like that, what a fantastic, that's a complete reshaping of who they're targeting.
But here's what I like though, but here's the thing, actually, Brad, but hold on. They always had strength. And this is where, and by the way, I want to invite Anais into this conversation at any time that you want to join in, sister, because she's also a brilliant marketer and a friend of ours. And I'm so excited you're here for Marketing Mondays. So whatever you want to do, Anais, you want to be on audio, you want to be on video, get on in here. But actually, Brad, to me, I would almost argue that they didn't rebrand at all, because before it was strong enough for a man, made for a woman. And now they're realizing, and who is their target? Strong freaking women. Right now, this whole like clinical strength, no sweat, whatever, who's their target? Strong freaking women. They're still talking about strength, but they realized that they had to, I don't think that they rebranded at all. I think that they updated their slogan with like an evolving social climate. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, what do you think?
I remember, obviously, for some reason, I remember those commercials and what you would have was very effeminate. It was a very effeminately targeted advertisement. And it was very soft. It was very quiet. It was very understated for whatever reason, whatever that motivation was. At the very least, and it would be an interesting discussion, what's the difference between a rebrand and a brand refresh? Because I think what they've done is at the very least recognized that their target audience changed. Something changed about their target audience.
Or just maybe that their consciousness changed.
There you go. It doesn't necessarily mean that the target audience is...
I'm so sorry for the delay.
No, it's good. The target audience is definitely a different person. It just might be because that person has developed. They've changed. There's been growth there, and there's a recognition. And I think that's kind of a cool study. What other brands said the target woman is still the target woman, but that woman is not who she's always been circa mid 80s, early 90s advertising. And instead now she's...
And here's it's... I'm sorry.
Keep going.
We're going to need a sign for like when you're still speaking or when you stop. Oh my goodness gracious. And then Anis and Isidro will go to you next. You know, it's interesting, Brad. I actually think lots of times about the sitcom Friends, which has had so much staying power, and it's so funny. Like when you watch, the actual construction of the jokes are funny. And if you've watched episode after episode after episode after episode and you're a content person like I am, you can see the construction. So for example, there are numerous episodes where like people like one up each other and it's funny. Like you can see the construction of the personalities and of the jokes that work every time. But the one thing that I will say is that the difference between watching that show in the 90s and watching that show in 2020 is that there are jokes that nowadays would be considered homophobic, transphobic. You know, there are jokes about, you know, Ross being effeminate or his son throwing a ball like a girl or whatever the case may be that like wouldn't play for a national audience in the same way. But one of the things that's interesting is that that's a shot TV show. That's a microcosm in time. But if you're a brand, right, you're still in the world 30 years later and you made all those jokes 30 years ago and you have to find a way that you're still talking to the exact same woman with the same sense of humor, but you're talking to her. You know what I mean? And it evolved. The world has revolved around you on its axis for 30 years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the brands that targeted almost slapstick reactionary branding, like I think of cigarettes and beer a lot. I think of the way athletic organizations have
the way cigarette marketing had to change is, I mean, that's a TED Talk right there.
Well, the best thing that ever happened to cigarettes was that they got deemed unhealthy because their marketing was so misogynistic. I mean, it was essentially, if you smoke a cigarette, you'll be a supermodel because that's the ideal and that's what we drive toward. And if you smoke a cigarette, you'll be a cowboy.
You'll be a cowboy.
So like if I smoke a cigarette, all I get's a hat and maybe a ranch. But if you smoke a cigarette, you get to be 6'6" and gorgeous because I'm not a cowboy and women who don't smoke aren't gorgeous. And if they had stayed that route, but instead, because of the legalities of the way they were marketing, and it happened to alcohol too, the legalities of the way they were marketing themselves, they got tamped down. You can't have cigarette commercials anymore. That's the best thing that ever happened to that industry because the path they were taking was not going to work.
Because being forbidden is sexy, and it's part of being a cowboy.
Right. Yes. And again, it was just really
oh my God, the delay.
heavily tailored to a very misogynistic point of view. And so think about things today that hold a misogynistic point of view, whatever they are. And now think about the people who out loud support those things. Like, you don't want that to be your base if you're trying to be an everything brand. Tide Pods couldn't possibly want a base that is defined by some racist,
You keep picking such interesting examples. Brad, we have to go to Anais and Isidro, but then I want to go back to Tide Pods and what happens when it turns out the kids swallow your product and die and what that looks like from a marketing perspective. This is what happens when Brad and I are on the phone. So Anais, I definitely want to hear from you. And then Isidro, I want to hear from you. And I want to tell everyone in the room, come to stage if you have a business question, because we could just talk about cigarettes and Tide Pods and deodorant, or we can talk about your business, which is why we're here. It's totally up to you. Anais, welcome to the stage, my brilliant marketing soul sister friend. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Good morning. My internet's a little wonky, so I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear me. Good morning, Brad.
Your internet's already way better than mine.
Well, give it time. Give it time. So this is just making me think about, I'm trying to think about the conversation we had, you and I had around like values-based marketing and how we as humans will always evolve. Like I think we see it all the time with when people are having their personal branding, they're sometimes afraid to say anything for fear that they'll be wrong looking back, like even 3 months later. And this to me is just showing that, like, look, if corporations that have these huge budgets to be able to do these branding can be so wrong when we're looking back, like you're allowed to also like make not, I would even call them missteps, but you're allowed to also grow into a different human and allow your marketing to evolve with you. So that's what's like coming through for me with this conversation. I think that's just so fascinating, like the things that we allow corporations to do, and yet for ourselves we think that we have to get it perfect the first time around.
I love that
Actually,
so much. And it makes me think, what if that, sorry, Brad, what if that was the model, right? Because you're saying, how much money did Secret have when they came out with that? And they pushed it out everywhere, and they must have had focus groups, and they must have had copywriters, and they must have had everything. And 30 years later, we're like, it worked then, it doesn't work now. But as you're saying, and for all the business owners in the room, because that's why we're doing this, you have to give yourself that grace. And I think that what Brad was saying earlier about not everyone being Coca-Cola and some people being a Fresca is that the reason why they're called heritage brands is because they last forever and they make sense forever. You know what I mean? Like, whereas making sense in a moment, like I remember we could go through products on products on products, right? I like to think about kids' toys. I like to think about Pogs. I like to think about Tamagotchis. I like to think about things that for a summer made a ton of money and then made no sense. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that they didn't have great marketing. Brad, what did you have? Pogs or a Tamagotchi?
I had Pogs. Did I have a Tamagotchi? My sister had one, and that thing died so fast. Man, my sister could kill a Tamagotchi. I think it's interesting to think about if we take Secret as the case study. I feel like in order for me to remember a commercial that didn't connect with me at all as a young kid, they had to be airing often enough in spots where I was watching during a portion where I didn't want to leave, and I remember all of it. And now today, where I professionally look at how people message themselves, I can't tell you the last time I even thought of that brand until we started this discussion. And when did their brand name?
Maybe it's because I work out a lot.
Well, but I think what's interesting is when I think of a female antiperspirant, I can name one total.
Actually, Brad, you said something so key right there that I've been thinking that we cannot skip over, because we're talking about branding and we're talking about marketing, but we haven't talked about the product. Why can Secret survive having a slogan 30 years ago that makes no sense now? Because it works.
That's true.
Because it works, and it's a good freaking antiperspirant and deodorant. And like, that's one thing that we can't jump over here. And same thing when Anais was saying that you can evolve, your messaging can evolve, everything else. It's because you can wear it in a workout and you're not gonna like, that's my extremely loud coffee pot.
No, that's a brilliant point, because at the end of the day, the reason, there have been brands. I swore to myself I wouldn't bring up chicken. But I spent 5-6 years of my life at Chick-fil-A.
I also have to just tell the room it's an inside joke, because the first like 6 marketing stages that I was on with, Brett, he used a fried chicken example.
I mean, fried chicken's great. And I didn't always use ones that I knew. I would talk about other companies
No,
that
I
did fried
remember
chicken.
like
I don't
you
know.
started with Chick-fil-A, but there was one stage where you made a brilliant point about KFC versus Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
There was one where you talked about something with Zaxby's, but I was like, are you like the fried chicken marketing
I'm the
guy?
ambassador. I'm from the South. I'm the ambassador. But I think
No, but
at Chick-fil-A, what's a really good example of where branding can elevate is there are people who will eat at Chick-fil-A and not be in love with the product. And then there are people who will eat at Chick-fil-A, love the product, and not love some of the stances of the brand because the brand has been able to say some things that are culturally insensitive, at least in our current context. 30 years from now, they might be passable, they might be approved, they might be abhorrent. I don't know. But when I was there, that's when Chick-fil-A made the news, made national news for some of the comments that they made. And to be clear, I was beginning to do some work with their marketing and branding. At that time, I was just in hospitality. But what was said and what wasn't said, and all the discussions about what's this going to do inherently to the value of the brand. And there were a lot of those discussions. What ended up happening was, for those who don't know, the owner of Chick-fil-A was asked a question about traditional marriage. He affirmed traditional marriage in an article. It got twisted a little bit that Chick-fil-A, that the founder of Chick-fil-A was anti whatever you determine is not to be traditional marriage. And when Chick-fil-A got asked corporately what they believe is a corporation, they said, we're a family owned business and we don't answer those questions, which wasn't a great response. So it allowed people to just kind of make up their own minds. And so what happened was when people decided to make up their own minds, there was a one day in August, I think, where everyone was going to boycott Chick-fil-A. And it ended up being the single highest grossing day in the history of Chick-fil-A up until that point. There were demonstrations, and the brand of Chick-fil-A superseded the messaging of the then president of Chick-fil-A. And what we saw, we had demonstrations at multiple stores and near in the area that I was working in, and it was awesome. There were wonderful events, and so I think there are definitely, it's very interesting to think of the juxtaposition between what a heritage brand can endure, survive, or even capitalize on. And I think Chick-fil-A kind of capitalized on some of their branding missteps and juxtaposed with
because
cancel culture.
the chicken is good. The chicken is, well, first of all, Anais is here, so I have to quote her and saying cancel culture is supremacy culture because I love that she says that. And I think that it also gives us space to learn the lessons we need to learn in our life. And that's like one of the most profound things I've heard said this year slash ever. But no, the chicken is good. If Chick-fil-A had bad chicken, it wouldn't really matter what they said. You know, it tastes good.
Yeah.
I do want to get to Isidra's question, and I do want to also encourage everyone in the room. This is an interactive hour. So, as I said, we will keep talking about fried chicken, deodorant, Fresca, roofs, and whatever else I love at Brad. But if you have a question about your business, that's why we're here, everyone, to get on up here and ask. Isidro, good morning. Welcome to the stage. Please tell me if I'm saying your name correctly.
Yes, you are saying my name correctly, and you cut out the last part of the question. I didn't hear the other question, but
Tell us why you're here. Share your question, share your comment. We want to hear from you.
okay. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Brad, and thank you, Sarah, for bringing me up again. I had 2 points I wanted to make, and then a question with one of the points. So the first point is Secret worked on me because I used it in my mid-20s. I figured if it was strong enough for a man, and it worked. So it worked on me. It spoke to me, and nobody else other than the people here on the stage know that. So don't ever If I run for president, I'll be
And
proud.
you smell good, so that's all we need. By the way, it's not like this is being shared on a public platform, so you're fine. You're fine.
That's
And
the
simulcast to
same with
YouTube. It's okay.
everyone on Fireside. You're fine.
So my other point is where a brand like, let's take Taco Bell. 30 years ago, they were saying make a run for the border. Totally inappropriate today. But today's generation, they don't even know about that. They even brought up the Chihuahua back 30, right? 30 years ago. And so that's an example of moving on from mistakes, right? Because people still love
And
Taco.
and here's the thing, you're also making such a good point too, because the voice actor for the Chihuahua was undeniably offensive.
Yeah.
I think some would say. And it's such an interesting point to actually look at brands who used caricatures or who leaned into offensive marketing. But as you said, who've just evolved with the times. Like you're right. When I think about Taco Bell right now, I think about fourth meal, which I think was brilliant. Brilliant marketing to add in a fourth meal, to add in another reason for people to come to your drive-thru and eat something.
Yeah. And then my other with now look at the Energizer Bunny. For multi generations been doing the same thing,
Yeah.
right? And it still works. And then
It
when you
keeps
think about,
going and going and it's
yeah,
still going.
it
It's been
keeps
going my
going,
entire
right?
lifetime. That's a pretty impressive money.
Yeah,
That's
and then so that lends me to the, well, they must make good batteries, and then you think of their competitor Duracell, and Duracell uses audio to make you remember them. It's those dun 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 with that sound, and so with so many more people having earbuds in their ears now, right? Because 30 years ago we had Walkmans and we had tapes, and we're like, whenever you had one of those, you stood out. Today, everybody's walking around with earbuds. So, how important is it for a brand to also pursue the audio to try to make their mark in an audio form?
mm. No, I think that's an important question. And I think one of the challenges for most businesses, if you aren't aware of your branding, and so that means you aren't focusing your marketing. I learned I learned a year ago in the clubhouse streets to stop saying words like targeting. So you aren't focusing your marketing from a brand that is clear. It doesn't matter the breadth or the depth of the brand. It matters the clarity of the brand, because when people become aware of it, what are they becoming aware of? So if you can focus the messaging from a clear brand to anywhere, the question would be then, what do your marketing efforts look like? Because what's interesting now, again, with Clubhouse, Fireside, Twitter Spaces, all of those things, you'll see people all of a sudden bust up and say like, "Oh, I'm here to engage. I'm here to engage people with my brand." But your brand is 20 years old, but it didn't exist on Facebook. It didn't exist on Instagram. It doesn't exist on Google. You don't have a website. And so a lot of those things that are, so if you're trying to jump on a current trend to create a new brand, it's significantly harder, I think, than making an adjustment like a Duracell did, because I can hear that audio sound that they make, that ding ding sound, and then trusted, long lasting, whatever it is they say. But I can also hear the audio sound of the Energizer Bunny hitting the drum.
Yeah, and I
And
just
here's what
think,
I want to add, and then we'll go to Candace, who had a point on audio as well. Oh, sorry, Azidra, I know my internet's delayed. Here's something that I think is really important. And I do want to say that before my partner at Breakfast Champions, Glenn Lundy, claimed the title of thinking through the exact same thing completely differently than I did, there's Brad. Because I agree with everything that he said, but I'm going to take a totally different angle. And here's what I'm going to say that I think is really important for every business owner in the room. If you can own a sense, any one of the five senses with your brand, you will be memorable and you will win. So whether it's that noise with Duracell, or whether it's even like when you're talking about audio, I was thinking about how in every Law and Order episode they have the dun dun. Or I'm thinking about when you walk into an Abercrombie and Fitch and Fierce hits you in the face because they own that smell. Or where Auntie Anne's positions itself in malls so that you smell the pretzels coming down the hallway. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters if it's the picture of the bunny, the Law and Order sound, the smell of Fierce cologne. If there's any like of the five senses that you can own as a brand, you've won. If your store always smells like this, if your product always tastes like this, if there's some sensory experience, if every time I open something from your company, I'm going to feel the same textures, you're instantly more memorable to me than a competitor that ignores anything sensory, I think. I don't think it matters which sense as long as you hone in on one. What do you think of that, Brad?
I think there's an intrinsic challenge to that because you named the only pretzel company that's in any mall I've ever been in. We're talking about the top fast food restaurants that have ever existed. Abercrombie is synonymous with that stink and weird advertising.
Well, how do you think they got there? Because they owned a sense,
but if
Brad.
we think of what this is and what Breakfast with Champions is, it will be great the day that Abercrombie calls me and says, hey, Brad, we have some questions about our brand. Awesome. But until then, we have a lot of people who I have been a life coach for 6 months or 26 years, and I'm just now getting into marketing my company. It is very tricky and far too easy. There's no barrier of entry now with the influx of social media. Like, why can't everybody have a commercial? Costs too much money. That's why. You can't, it costs too much money and it's far too competitive. So you'd have to really save up and then really figure out where you wanted to be and what slots you wanted to be in. So if you've got 10 grand, you can have a commercial. And then if you got 10 more grand, you can advertise it. But if 20 grand to do one thing is something I just said out loud to you and you think I made $400 last month. So I'm going to download an app that's free. I'm going to get on the app that's free and I'm going to just tell everybody who the heck I am. Be very cautious with that because I have no idea how you make a heritage brand downloading Clubhouse. I've never seen it. Now, what's to say in a decade it doesn't exist? It very well may, but at this moment, we don't have anything to go on to say Spark Business Strategies is only 3 years old. So for a third of the life of my company, their CEO has been on Clubhouse and has now amassed, several people to follow. And when people listen to what I say, it adds value to the brand and we've monetized. We've done well. Can I do that for another 6, 7, 8 years? I have no idea. Can one person do it while also being in the fireside room and posting on Instagram and being my wife's Insta husband, because I am, and now my kids are coming up on social media and they want to do their things and be YouTube gamers. And we're saying one person, 26 places, give it all you've got, own that sense. I think for the solopreneur, for the startup, it's an impractical challenge unless you have a bandwidth that's huge.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I want to clarify my point and then Candace will come to you next because what I'm actually saying is that I think that even a solopreneur and someone with a low budget can look at the fact that these massive brands create moments with emotional triggers and look to replicate that in their business because we're talking about how powerful those things are. That's where I'm going. So what I'm saying is that obviously, if you're the new life coach, there are so many more things that you need to get going first, right? You need to get certified. You need to know who you're speaking to. You need to know what problem you're solving, all those pieces. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to go with that model, let's say you coach women, that when women join your program, they get a box from you. I don't think that it's a grab bag. I think that you put the same scented candle in every box. I think that you decide what your things are and that goes in every one. And so whenever a woman is around, like whatever those pieces are that you think align with whatever she's doing, that she instantly thinks of you and whatever, you guys are doing on that. I don't think that you just throw in a journal and socks and a candle because she's a woman. I think that you actually think about these are the things that I want her to associate with my brand since I'm doing this anyway. And so maybe and Isidro, I'll kind of circle back to your question, which will go to Candace's point as well, because maybe I misunderstood it. But what I was saying is that what I took from Izidra's point that's so powerful is that Abercrombie and Fitch doesn't spray a different cologne every morning. It's always fierce.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, like the Duracell doesn't have a different jingle every season. It's always the same 3 tones. Law and Order doesn't play different music between the scene transitions. It's always dun dun. Now, to your point, Brad, that's not why they're successful. Law and Order isn't the longest running television show of all time because it has the dun dun. But like, as I think through business owners in this room, I would say that if everything you're doing could have that intentionality of maybe saying, is there, I know you're enjoying me doing the sound effect, is there kind of some way that I communicate with my client in some sense that I can appeal to specifically so that it makes them think of me? Because we know that when clients have that thing that reminded them of that business, like that's going to generate more business. So that's kind of where I was going with that. But to your point, I do think I missed the audio point. Candace, I know you had a point on the audio, so we'll hop over to you for.
Well, it wasn't really a point on audio. It's kind of going back to the commercial and like having a commercial that is so on brand that it still lasts for many and still resonates with many people over the years. Think about the Tootsie Roll lollipop commercial with the owl. That commercial was made in 1982. It's so low res, but still to this day, they still play it because it's still successful, and they still play it low res. They didn't upgrade it to high res. They play it just the way that it is because it still works for them. So that was just the point that
I kind of love that too, because I love that low res owl. Like,
yeah, we love it because
like if they ever had an owl come out on a hovercraft, you would be like, go away. That would be like new Coke. You'd be like, stop.
That's true. Not an owl come out on a hovercraft. I think one for them, and I think they're a really good example.
They can't fly.
Right. Like here, this will help the owl fly. I think what's great. Well, that owl's probably got a disability now. It's been eating lollipops for a long time. Poor owl. That poor owl. But I think what's great about them, and to kind of all the points we've been making. I mean, I don't know what the advertising budget of a Tootsie Roll is or of Tootsie Pop, but I know the advertising budget, at least at Snickers, looks like it's 1 trillion times bigger, because there's you don't do whatever it is about being hungry, or Twix, left Twix, right Twix. And I know they're all kind of under the same umbrella.
By the way, I hate whoever came up with the left Twix, right Twix marketing campaign. I think that marketing campaign sucks because it's not something people actually care about. They're trying to make people care about something they don't actually care about.
Right, which is it's
as an aside,
people who do the advertising for KFC. It's not. I just like making fun of Kentucky Fried Chicken's advertising. It's atrocious, but I think what's great is they found, to Candace's point, it grabbed me. The owl grabbed me when I was little, and now that I'm the buying agent for the candy in this house, now you're bringing it back. And I'm like, come on, man, my kids got to know about Tootsie Pops. And so we have bought them, and my kids prefer them to lollipops. Like, they don't eat Dum-Dums, they eat Tootsie Pops. And I think part of the reason they do that is because that low-res owl reminds me of something I loved as a child. That was the lollipop you wanted. It wasn't always the one you got, but it was the one you wanted. And so I think that's an excellent point and a really good workaround to some of the marketing challenges that we created. Like, marketing's gotten...
And it's interesting too, though, Brad, but going back to what we were saying about Secret before, also a Tootsie Pop is freaking delicious. And so again, like, as we keep thinking about the business owners in this room, I love the fact that you're saying, like, you can have the low res, the cult following. I think it's really interesting. I think about the comparison to movies, right? You think about big budget movies that have huge marketing budgets and like a killer box office weekend, and the movie sucks. And what happens? Like, the word gets out that the movie sucks, and like, that's that. But then you have these movies that aren't able to blow it out in the first weekend, and they get that cult following on Netflix or whatever the case may be. And what does that do down the road? So there's something really interesting. Like, I think you and Candace are right. When you hit that synergy of a great product and a memorable commercial, like you're saying, it doesn't have to be the most expensive one on the block. Sometimes we make fun of the ads where you can tell, like, as I said, like left Twix, right Twix, like stop trying to make fetch happen. Like stop trying to make that work. Like I
Yeah.
don't care. I think a Twix bar is delicious and I never have cared what factory it came from.
Yeah, no, I think of what
The delay is terrible.
for you in business, everybody listening, what is your best point of conversion? If you own a freestanding facility for whatever it is that you do, so someone walks in the door, and whenever someone walks in the door to ask you about business, you have a 98% close rate. They will be a client 98% of the time. Then your marketing challenge is just to get people in the door. You got to get them in the door. If you make cookies and you make the best cookies and you know they're the best cookies, or they're the best cookies,
You just got to get someone to try one.
they got to eat one cookie. So if you're targeting people who have 18 allergies, they're allergic to gluten and wheat and chocolate and dairy and happiness, but you somehow made a cookie that is incredible with a lot of thank you, with a lot of what we would consider substitutionary ingredients, and you've done it. You've done it. And you say, Brad, there are 250,000 people in the United States that need this cookie. And I know that. So if a quarter of them bought, we'd be done, because they would keep buying and they'd tell everybody else. And then we'd be set forever. So your job is to get people to try the cookie. So your marketing isn't to get people in the door. Your marketing might really be lead generation. Let me send you a cookie and you prove to me that it's not the best one you've ever had. Like, come on, that's gutsy.
I have a real life example for you. I have a real life example for you. And then I do want to pass the mic back to Anais and Candace as well, since they're here. I hate myself because I forget who I was talking to. But I was talking to someone who was on the team that invented Pringles. And it was an amazing conversation. And that's why I hate myself, because I forget who it was. But they were talking about the fact that there was all of this market research around what people hated about the experience in a bag of chips. What do they hate about the experience in a bag of chips? They hate that air in like the top. That annoys people, right? They hate like the way that the chips break. They hate that their hands are messy. They studied everything that people hate in a bag of chips and they solved it with Pringles. That's why they're stacked in the can. That's why they're stacked to the top. Like they literally looked at every user pain point with a brand of chips and they solved it. And then to your exact point, Brad Caldwell, what's their slogan? Once you pop, you can't stop, because all they needed was for people to buy the tube and see that the experience was different than with a bag.
So now what are they doing? Think about what they're doing now. Think about their current. Pringles is such a good one, because what do they do now? They're telling you, if you buy the jalapeno one and you buy the barbecue one and you buy the cheddar cheese one, you just had cheddar jalapeno barbecue. There's a whole commercial. If you make your own combos. So now what they're trying to do is move from, all right, we got the single tube buyer. We do. But now we go to the grocery store and people will buy 4 bags of potato chips simply because it's buy 2, get 2 free. Well, Pringles are at a higher price point. So they've got to incentivize you beyond a discount. So they're going to lean into what's worked, and now they're going to compound it and say, literally, if you layer our flavors, you get a whole new Pringle experience. And I think it's genius marketing, especially because it's a continuation of what they've always said about themselves. So they didn't rebrand, they didn't refresh. They're carrying out the same brand messaging, which might be what Secret's been doing all along, carrying out the same messaging as the audience.
And exactly to your point, we all know, how do you make more money? It's not just to get more clients. It's also to get the same clients to spend more money. Get them to buy 3 things of Pringles instead of 1. They're already there. They already know that your hands aren't as messy because you're not reaching in. They already know that there's not the space, like all of that. Oh my gosh, I'm loving this conversation so much. Anais and Candace, you have been hanging out with us all hour. So I want to see if there's anything else you'd like to add into the discussion. I also want to tell everyone in the audience, this is your last chance to get on up here. I mean, Brad and I can talk about anything: chicken, deodorant, lollipops, candy, chips,
I'm
fruit.
starving.
We can market any of that. Get on up here. Ani, do you have anything to add, sister? Would love to hear you.
Now, I'm just thinking about how little I see commercials anymore. Like y'all are talking about these commercials and I feel like so out of touch because I haven't had a commercial in my TV watching experience in such a minute that it's also making me think of like all the other alternatives that there are to marketing. So I'm just appreciating that I'm out of touch with commercials.
I'm so jealous.
No, I actually love that because I think about, to your point, the evolution of branded content. There's a movie, it's not very good. It's called The Women. Oh, yay, Kim's coming to stage. It's called The Women. It stars Meg Ryan, and I went to see it because every famous woman in Hollywood ever is in this movie. Deborah Messing's in this movie, and Jada Pinkett Smith is in this movie, and I think Diane Keaton's in this movie. And like, if you were a famous, Eva Mendes is in this movie. If you were a famous woman in Hollywood in a certain period of time, you were in this movie. It's not very good. This movie very clearly partnered with Dove, speaking of deodorant. And the reason why I know that is that Meg Ryan's character like had a Dove deodorant like anywhere she went. Now this is a movie where like her husband's cheating on her and she has to like reclaim her life. So they were probably like, this is a perfect for her avatar. But like everything, like she's like, you know, reading the letter that her husband is gone and her purse is open and there's a thing of deodorant falling out of it. She's like making her sketches for her fashion show and like on her desk next to the frame of her daughter is her deodorant. Like it is the most obvious. Dove was like, how can we be in every scene of this movie? It's kind of like when Cars first like realized that they could sponsor TV shows and they were like, oh, like let's make sure that like instead of just the person driving the car to get somewhere, they're like, oh, like White Collar is a show that I love, but they were so obviously sponsored by Cars because they'd be driving through New York City and they'd be like, oh, let's hit the navigation to see if we can avoid the traffic on 5th to get the bad guy on 7th more quickly. And they'd be like, oh, I'm so glad that my car like made sure I didn't hurt the person next to me. And you're like, this is the worst branded content experience of all time. So Anais, I love you mentioning that, you know, when there aren't commercials, there's a right and a wrong way to still introduce that content. Kim Fair, I'm so excited you're here. Do you have a question for us?
I do. Good morning. Rex company. They have their own brand. My question is, myself more so
Kim,
on.
you're breaking up a little bit.
I was gonna say I
Sorry.
can't hear Kim at all. I didn't know if it was me. Can you hear her, Brad?
No,
Can you
I
hear me
can't.
now?
Try.
Kim,
Keep
can
trying.
you?
Is it better? Yeah.
Okay. So I'm with nail polish and I want to brand myself. You know, you never know.
No, I'm losing you again, Kim. Oh my gosh. Do you know what? I'm gonna drop you down and pull you back up because I also saw Candace on mute. Well, Candace, we'll hear from you. Kim, I'm gonna pull you up again. I don't know if there's anything you can do with your internet or if you can just move a little bit.
So this is going to kind of go back to what we were talking about, like, you know, how much it is to make commercials and like having one good commercial that can sustain brands. But it just got me thinking about the movie Clerks, where Kevin Smith literally made that movie for $27,000, maxed out, multiple credit cards to end up making it. And now here it is, years and years and years later, and it's worth over millions of dollars. So I just want to, I guess my question would be like, what are your thoughts on like, does someone need to spend a tremendous amount of money to make a commercial for their brand in order for it to be successful?
No. And here's how you can get around overspending in marketing. Be strong. Be strong. Be clear. The strength of a brand. Marketing is supposed to be an additive. It's supposed to take what you are and be the vehicle that gets to where the ideal client persona, your avatars, are waiting for you. They need what you have. They have buying preference. It might be the integrity of your work. It might be what it reminds them of. It might be that you made them laugh or that you didn't make them laugh. It might be the year they were born or how much money they make today. They might be looking to buy from you in a year or a year ago. And that's the challenge of business marketing, is that you're always trying to find something that, as we've discussed multiple times, is ever evolving. I owned the stuffed chihuahuas that Isidro was talking about because I thought they were hysterical. I would never let anybody see that I own them today. I would have gotten rid of those things immediately because, gosh, that was awful and I just didn't know. 19-year-old Brad thought that was hysterical. 41-year-old Brad didn't. I made a lot of purchases of that stupid stuff and a lot of Taco Bell in 1999 that I would not make in 2021 had they not changed, or 22, had they not changed. Because with a great brand, you have to send the marketing. And so I would say, like, I mean, Candace, I'm going to send you up a real huge softball. Like, this is just I know very little about you, Candace, but everything that I know, I like.
It's because of the Clerks reference.
That really helped. But Shark Week, how do you market Shark Week? You tell everybody it's coming. That's it. You don't market the channel. You don't market the network. You might show a picture of Shaq or Kevin Hart or some superstar that's going to be in the water. But otherwise, you just say, hey, that thing you forget 8 months out of the year that you passionately can't stop watching, it's coming back. It's coming back.
I mean,
that's
you can literally show a shark. Like, Shark Week is now a pop culture event. It's been around for 30 plus years. And you are speaking my language. You must have done a little bit of reading on me, or maybe Sarah's talked to you about me. But like, one thing, like, I'm going to say this, and I really hope this doesn't get back to any of my execs. And even if it did, I would still tell them, I would tell this in their face. No one could care about the celebrities. No one cares. All they care about is seeing the sharks.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we attach celebrities to shows to market a different demographic, to bring in different viewers. But the bread and butter of Shark Week is literally the sharks.
I completely agree with you.
I am going to jump in because, Brad, I see you and Candace having a moment, but I actually, we are going to have to wrap in a few minutes here. And we have Kim on stage. We have Deanna on stage. There's one thing I do want to drop in as encouragement for a moment, though. I agree with what you said, Brad, but I also think that Clerks is a Cinderella story. And I think that sometimes businesses lose hope when the reality of the situation is that they have a brilliant product or service, or if they're an artist and they have brilliant art. We also have to be mindful of the fact that, like, if the crap art on the block is out marketing you and outspending you on Google, on Facebook, on every single thing that you can think of, and they're on billboards and they're on buses and you're going to have an uphill battle to become that cult favorite, which doesn't mean that you can't. And we can definitely dig into that in a future episode, but I just wanted to give that encouragement to anyone who's listening, who's like, I know that my work is as good as Clerks. Why am I not having that journey? Yeah. Is because I'm sure that there are a lot of other pieces of it into. I do want to make sure we leave time for Kim and Deanna and wrap in like 3 minutes. So we'll do a power round. Kim, is your sound any better?
I hope. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm with a direct sales company. We sell dry nail polish. And so they have their brand, but I want to brand myself. And something that I've been working on is making life easier. And so, so that's something that I'm working on. So what would you suggest, to kind of get that started? If you know what I mean. I don't know whether I'm rambling or not, but, I'd like to give
Brad, I want to jump on this one because I do my nails, and you jump on the next one. How's that sound? Since we're doing a power round, does that work for you? So, Kim, my first question to you would be, and I love that idea, but I'm wondering if that comes from you or if that comes from your ideal customer. And here's why. I do like getting my nails done. So I get my nails done once a week. It definitely does make my life easier, but there are a couple reasons why I get them done. The first actually now is because I'm on video every morning. And I've literally, on my first fireside interview, because I was drinking a cup of coffee, people DM'd me and said, I like your nails. So I feel like I need to because I'm on video more. Second of all, I get them done because I get gel because I'm doing dishes with my, all the time with my girls. Like I need stuff that's going to be very like durable. The third reason why I get them done is because for me, it's a moment of relaxation, and I'm a very in relaxation starved individual. So my first encouragement to you, and I love that messaging, but the very first thing that I would say is that we have to make sure that that's exactly what your customer is looking for when you say making life easier. Because if it turns out that you would make more sales because they want to look more glamorous, as an example, I don't think that it's going to land. So first we want to make sure that we're hitting their exact need. And then if you are hitting their exact need, what I think you can do to brand yourself is a few things. One, you can think about all of the ways, not only that getting their nails done makes life easier, but in general, like being a part of your community and being connected to you makes life easier. So it might be that in addition to, honing in on things like don't just talk about nail polish and just don't show pretty nails because people can get that anywhere. But maybe you're also sharing 5 ingredient recipes and you're also sharing like other things that would appeal to your avatar. You're also sharing, dry shampoo or whatever the case may be, so that when they come to you, you teach them how to glamorously make their life easier. And by the way, having their nails done through you is part of that solution. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, no, I think my wife uses those nails. My wife's a critical care nurse. She's the mom of 3, and she does all the work in this house. And so what drew her and why she picked from multiple people she knew who did that, because that's what people are doing. They're picking. And if it's a product that people want and your job is to sell the product, then yes, I think you do sell beyond the product, more to the demographic of the person who you're trying to sell to. But I think Sarah's spot on. One of the mistakes we made when we started was we assumed there would be millions of people who had the pain point we had in starting a company. And what we found out very quickly was that the solutions that I use are more expensive than what startups can afford. So we weren't landing with the people just like me. It was when we started thinking about who could actually purchase what we were doing. So thinking through the ideal client and not just a message that sounds good to them, but would actually reach them. I agree, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Kim, I hope that was helpful. And I love what you're doing. And listen, feel free to shoot me whatever it is. If it's an Instagram, if it's a Facebook page, hit me in the DM so that I can check out what you're doing.
Okay.
Amazing. Deanna, welcome. We are going to wrap in a few minutes here, but we would love to hear from you this morning.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I appreciate you allowing us to ask some questions. So I am a life coach, and I specifically work with women who have gone through trauma and abuse, and also in the sexual abuse arena. So it is a very sensitive subject, but I have gotten really good feedback on the fact that I make it a subject that is more approachable because I add a little bit of lightheartedness to it, where it doesn't always have to be so always melodramatic, letting people know that where they are is where they are, not who they are, and that they were designed for greatness and a purpose. So they can get back to just being themselves from a place where they feel like they're broken. The question is that I'm transitioning out of another career. So I have been doing this for 7 years almost. But I haven't been focusing in on it like I need to. Do I need ClickFunnels? Everything I look into when I start working in this arena is like a $10,000 investment just to get marketing done. And I feel like I'm just spending all my time creating content right now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you will, because to start a business and to get known in any space requires you to create content. And for people whose businesses have gotten beyond the need to create content, like for that individual to make it, you've forgotten how much of a pain in the butt it is. It's not quick. It's very frustrating. It's super daunting when great content falls flat and hack content scores. It's frustrating. I will say first, lean in till I clicked on your profile right as soon as you started speaking, and I can gather who you're targeting by the way that you're speaking. But I can also say it's very engaging. It's very positive. It's very upbeat, which I think in that space is intrinsically valuable. Although I'm by no means an expert, not even close. But I do think when it comes to shortcuts, so properly branding and marketing your company is a long play. It's a long walk in the same direction. And you've got to be willing to march for a while.
Okay.
But when you look for things that are intrinsically going to grease the skids, they're going to help you go faster. They're expensive or they're free. And I don't know why, but those are the two things. They're either expensive.
Well, can you direct me to the free ones?
all of social media, of social media. But
Right.
what you're going to find is that content development is a lifestyle. I mean, I build it for myself and I build it for all of my clients. My team builds it for all of my clients. For my team who's going to see this, I'm so sorry. Please don't yell at me. But so when they're building it out, we're trying to think about what have we always said? How can we honor it and continue the development of the conversation? Just like we were talking about previously with brands that kind of developed and matured. So I think
one of the things, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but one of the brands that I love
So,
is
Deanna,
the
I'm
Mayhem
so
Guy.
sorry. Deanna, I'm so sorry. I actually have to wrap the show. I definitely want to encourage everyone to reach out to Brad. I'm going to introduce a couple people on stage, and I'm going to have Brad, we'll tell everyone where they can reach you. Deanna, the one thing that I would add for you is look for partnerships. Look for people who are creating content who you can create content with. I think that's something that's going to help you create more
Perfect. Thank
content.
you.
Brad Caldwell, where can people find you after this?
Yeah, you could go to our company's website. It's thisisbrandstrategy.com, or you could find me on all the social medias. Most of them, it's Brad_Caldwell. So that's where you can find me.
Amazing. And I want to take a minute to thank everyone who's here. Candace, who's our head of programming at Breakfast with Champions. Kim, who's a super fan and amazing human in our community. Brad, who is my special guest host today. Deanna, thank you for your question. Anais, genius marketer. Joshua B. Lee, who's letting me be 5 minutes late to his Zoom call, who we need to get on one of these in February so that you can school people up on LinkedIn. Are you in? Are you in on that, Joshua, now that I put you on the spot?
I am 100% in. Anytime.
Yay! All right. Make sure you guys are finishing the show and following Joshua as well. Valerie, thank you for being here. Wendy, thank you for being here. Jimmy, thank you for being here. I appreciate every single one of you for joining us today. And thanks for spending your Monday morning with us over here on Business with Champions. I'm so glad we got to talk about every category of brands. I think, right, Rob? We got cigarettes, we got fried chicken, we got deodorant, we got roofing, we got soda, we got candy, we got batteries, we got television.
Shark Week.
Did I miss any?
Yeah, we're
Shark Week. We covered the whole gamut.